So I want to talk about a very violent incident that happened yesterday in Donaghmede in County Dublin at a Tusla care facility. What I mean by that, apartment owned by Tusla for children that are unaccompanied to come into the state, asylum seekers come into the state. Now, unfortunately, one young lad was killed, 17. Imagine he came from Ukraine, a country that is at war, has a right to seek international protection. And he came here only a few days ago, and he was killed in Dublin by a Somali asylum seeker, another young 17-year-old or so. So our thoughts go out to the poor family, and God forbid, it must be devastating to hear that. To hear that your child is going to a safe country, and then to hear that news, it's devastating stuff. So our hearts go out to them, and our hearts go out to the care worker. There's a care worker that was in the facility too. That was was assaulted with a knife. So our hearts go out to them. That person's still in the hospital. Our hearts go out and our thoughts go out to her this time too, and hopefully, please God, she'll make a full recovery. But I want to talk about Tusla as a whole in this case, and in other cases too. That Tusla, the Child and Family Care Facility, this is basically the state body to look after children that are taken away from their parents because of abuse. Take for example, as I said there, with children coming here seeking international protection that are not accompanied by parents. The whole system, but particularly with this, it seems there's a lot of questions to do with this. First of all, was any risk assessments done in terms of the people that were going into this facility? That, for example, this person from Somalia, did he have a criminal record? What was the story? Was there any assessments done to find out was this fellow suitable to seek international protection here? First of all, because there's nothing happening in Somaliland, so I don't know why he was here. But second of all, was there any background checks done to see did this fellow have a criminal record? For example, did he have a mental disorder, etc., etc. And I'm not using the cry for help, etc., etc. That's what the state will probably use. But was there any background there? Because you can't just put in somebody into a place if you don't know their background, if you don't know what they like, etc., etc. And obviously, would they been supervised too? That's another question. Would they been supervised? Because again, in the eyes of the Irish state, until you are 18 years old, you should be supervision. It's the same in secondary school and national schools. In the eyes of the Irish state, you're not an adult until 18, and these people were just under 18. And would how did they get access to knives? Were they properly secured, etc., etc. I know people say they're teenagers, etc. But still, at the same time, they should have probably been secured, especially in a state-run facility. It's not like your home or anything like that. And especially when it comes to Tusla. Tusla has a very bad track record in this country of children going missing. There's hundreds of children in the last few years have gone missing in the state's care, and still some of them haven't been found. We don't know where they are. They could be in another country, they could be dead, we don't know. And there was cases in Dublin, 2 cases particularly, of 2 young babies that went missing. One of them was up for adoption by Tusla, and they disappeared, and we still don't know where they are. One of their bodies have been found, but it's very fishy that Tusla is involved in all these cases, and they simply don't know where these children go. And then they're involved in cases that they're being neglected. The children are being neglected, and the state lets them stay with their parents. And most likely, the parents did kill these children, and Tusla let them stay with them. And not to mention too, as I say, many children go missing, etc. And particularly when you look at all of the statistic of human trafficking, it's the worst in Europe. Human trafficking is the worst in Europe and Ireland. So we have to ask, are these children being trafficked by the state? We have to ask that question. It has to be asked. Nobody's willing to ask that question. And the media are very silent on this topic, and it just goes to show the silence is complicity, nearly in this case. But is the state literally trafficking children, what the Catholic Church used to do years ago? Is that what's happening? Is this what's happening in this country? We need to ask them questions. To be totally honest, Tusla's not fit for purpose. We see what happened with Maurice McKay back in the day when he was whistleblowing about what was happening in Garda Síochána. They tried to label him as a child abuser, etc., etc., just to try and get him to be quiet. So Tusla is not the nicest crowd. And I've even heard of cases. There was a case in Galway about 2 years ago. A teacher reported, because again, if you're an education professional, if you see signs of abuse of a child, you should report it to Tusla. That's the whole concept of it. I know teachers and stuff, they're told in any sign they have any suspicious of a child being abused or being neglected at home, particularly from primary school and secondary school, to report it, of course, to Tusla. Because children, some children would be terrified, they say, if their parents were abusing them, etc. And take, for example, this case in Galway about 2 years ago, the child was coming in with battered hands, etc., battered and bruised. and a fire was set to Tusla about it, and Tusla did nothing about it. So hopefully that child is in a lot better care, not with their parents anymore. But what I'm trying to say is Tusla doesn't do anything when children are being abused. And they would go after the mother or the father that's on their own trying to raise a child. They would go after them that's struggling to pay the bills. And that's what Tusla do. Because Tusla's no good, no addition. And the person that's over the children in this country is no addition either, no more 40. No addition whatsoever. We might have to put the wall in charge of the children, looking after children. And I wouldn't trust Norma Foley to mind a hen house, let alone the children, the Tusla, to be totally honest. But going back just to the thing that happened in Donemead, it does have to be addressed. It does have to be addressed because there's serious concerns, and rightly so, because this shouldn't happen. It shouldn't have happened. And it needs to be looked at. The whole people turning up here without parents, etc., needs to be looked at. Because, first of all, I don't know how the other person that stabbed the child from Ukraine, I don't know how he was even allowed to stay here, because there's no war in Somaliland. In Ukraine, understandable, there's war in Ukraine and Afghanistan and Sudan too. But any other countries that probably shouldn't be coming here, because they have no really legal basis to be here, because it's not a country at war, etc. But questions need to be asked, serious questions need to be asked about this case and about other cases too, and it's not just to do with Tusla. So I would really recommend that we just abolish Tusla and we start it up from the ground up, because at the moment in time it seems to be a hello of association, excuse my language, but that's what it is. That the state doesn't know how to look after the people in the state's care that we're paying for. I'm paying for these children to be looked after. If a child's being abused by their parents, God forbid, and the state intervenes to take care of the child, I'm paying my taxes for that reason, so that child would be looked after and wouldn't have to worry about going to, getting food, or getting fed, etc., etc. They shouldn't have to worry about that, or they shouldn't have to worry about if of their parents beating them up, being drugs or alcoholics, etc., etc. They shouldn't have to worry about that. And that's why people pay their taxes. So it all goes back to this too. And I think it's to do with the whole system in this country, first of all. To do with the whole state institutions, they're just rotten to the core. They don't care about the only Joe, they're all about money and power, and that's all it is. And I think some of these people in Tusla have too much power, and it gets to their head, and they won't use it for the beneficial of the state, but they use it to improve their own standing, pretty much, in a way. Because as I see, the majority of cases the Tusla does intervene in, it's not really necessary. The people are doing their best, and then the case that they need to intervene, they won't intervene. It doesn't make any sense. But just the last point to say about Donemead, my heart does go out to the poor family and his friends and his family, of course, and to the people that seen it, too. The people had to go to the emergency services, the first responders that had to come into that incident. The members of Garda Síochána, for example, or the ambulance service, or the fire brigade, or even just only members of the public that had to see that too, what happened. Our hearts go out, our thoughts go out to them. We hope that God can keep them close and help them get through this tough time. But it just goes to show you, the last thing I say about this, that this poor young lad came from Ukraine, and he thought he was safe in this country, a long distance away from a conflict. It's a shame thing to have to say that he was more safe nearly in Ukraine than he was in Ireland, and that's a sad thing to have to say, but it's sadly the truth. And it goes to do with safety too of the whole country, that this shouldn't have happened, should never have happened. And things have to be learned from this, and should be learned very quickly. But yeah, let me know what you think. Again, be sensible, because it is a very sensitive, as I say, very sensitive topic. A young lad is dead because of this. So whatever your thoughts, just be reasonable with people, because it is young lad dead, and and you have to understand that it's not like a game, it's life. So yeah, thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and bye.